What is going on, everybody? I am back in Toronto, just enjoying the last vestiges of summertime. We're here in Chinatown, and I'm gonna go grab a bubble tea and talk to you about a movie that I just recently saw, Crazy Rich Asians. Let's get it. Oh, you know how long it took me to find a spot to sit? The ice is all gone in here. Honestly, not as good as Kung Fu tea back in Chicago. Bubble tea is not the right beverage to drink while talking to the camera, I just realized. What's going on, fellow foodies? So happy to see you guys again. Oh, by the way, look. I got a ND filter, so now I can shoot in the sun without... I particularly want to talk to you about Crazy Rich Asians through the lens of a CBC, a Canadian-born Chinese person. But what I wanted to do was talk about the movie first on its own merits. Firstly, I liked it. I liked it a lot, but I wouldn't really watch it in theaters for a second or third time like a lot of my friends or a lot of people that I know have said that they would do. At the end of the day, for me, it is still a rom-com. A predictable storyline, not a lot of character development, and, well, mild spoiler alert. What I mean by that is, at the end of the day, Rachel learns that she's good enough. Eleanor learns that Rachel is good enough. Astrid learns that she's good enough alone. And Nick learns that the cornerstone of any healthy relationship is open communication. It's not particularly groundbreaking, storytelling or cinematography. That being said, I give it a solid 7 out of 10. It passes, but it's kind of an Asian fail. But that's not the crux of why Crazy Rich Asians is the talk of town. Now, before I go into that, I have to give you guys some background. One of my very good friends, Richard, who you've actually seen in one of my other videos, I'm going to link it there. He asked me whether Crazy Rich Asians defines CBC culture. What exactly is CBC culture? I think it's an interesting question. Let me give you some of my background. I'm a 4th generation Canadian. My great-grandfather came from China to Vancouver and quickly became a fixture of that nascent community. On the other side, my mother is a 1st-gen Canadian. She came from Vietnam. So it's safe to say that I've sort of straddled the line between these two different cultures. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if you were to ask me where I'm from, I would say Canada. And coincidentally, Richard, who is also a Wong, just a yellow Wong, not a King Wong, he shares a very similar background to me, just with roots in Toronto as opposed to Vancouver. So growing up, I never really had some of the experiences that a lot of Canadian-born Chinese will say that they've gone through, or American-born Chinese, ABCs. When I went to school, there was always at least another Asian kid there. I never had this sense of otherness. I was never ridiculed for the types of food that I brought, whether it was rice or weird pickles or anything like that. Grades were a thing, but I'm beginning to think that that should be the norm. Go Tiger Moms. I did take piano lessons, but I'm pretty sure that I asked for the piano lessons. I was forced to take Chinese lessons, but I was pretty terrible at it, and I still am, and I tried several other times to learn the language. It's just never stuck. My two languages are actually Norwegian and French. Yeah, I was never subject to blatant racism, with the notable exception of another Asian, a Vietnamese guy who I was playing against in rugby. We were crushing his team, and after a particularly big hit, he called me a chink. And I promptly went and told my team, and we proceeded to kick the shit out of him every single ruck we had. So, I mean, that's not saying that that Asians, Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, Japanese, and all of the others don't feel the effects of prejudice while living here in North America or anywhere. We can't drive, pretty good at math and computers, which is sweet nowadays. We eat everything: dogs, cats, rats, everything. Our restaurants, super dirty. MSG causes headaches. The men are emasculated. We're just tiny. And the women are fetishized because they're just tiny. It's not the same incredibly harmful stereotypes that, say, indigenous peoples across the world or people of African descent have to put up with. You know, we don't really have to fear for our lives when our cars get pulled over by the cops. It's a completely different reality. It's probably this lack of direct harm, this lack of direct risk, that's kind of contributing to this ambiguity around what CBC culture is. Now, at the same time, growing up, my personal identity has in some ways been a rejection of ideals, and in particular a rejection of being like other Asians, particularly other FOB Asians, fresh off the boat. So I've often thought of myself as Asian but not. Some of my friends will call me banana, so very white. You know, and I guess in some ways it's true. Still, I've also got definite Asian traits. For me, anything less than excellence is not an option. And I don't know whether that's a tiger mom thing or that's just a plain old driven thing, but that's the reality for me. I'll eat anything. I'll try anything at least once. Yeah, maybe even dog. I know all of my favorite dim sum words, and yes, I'm really fucking good at math and computers. To answer the question, I don't really know what CBC culture is. Is it me? Is it Richard? Is it you? Is it a rejection of ideals? Is it a meeting in the middle? I think the only fair thing to say is that it is, well, a sense of otherness, but maybe not in a negative way. I don't think in a negative way at all. And then to answer the second question, does Crazy Rich Asians help us define what CBC culture is? And in some ways, sure, it adds to the pop culture pantheon the same way that Fresh Off the Boat, Kim's Convenience, and the rise in popularity of Ali Wong do. And what I will say is that Crazy Rich Asians definitely does take some strides in pushing a new definition of CBC or ABC culture, a glamorous all-star cast of all Asians, which is particularly big in the world of whitewashed Hollywood. Everyone is hot, particularly the men, and I think that's an important thing to bring out, is the fact that the gratuitous shirtless scenes are all of chiseled abs on men, and I, for one, am not complaining. The women are clearly attractive, but they're not these sexed up, they're just glamorous and hot. And there are visual touchstones of Asian culture peppered throughout the movie. Under the hood, the primary theme of Crazy Rich Asians, which is this cultural dichotomy between Eastern and Western family ideals is a very real struggle. And it asks the question, is blood thicker than water? Should you be sacrificing your happiness for your family versus going out there and changing the new ideal? But at the same time, Crazy Rich Asians still feels stagnant to me. It's still a rom-com, so there's plenty of bit part characters, and all of those are overblown embodiments of new age stereotypes. Yeah, there are no martial arts actors, well, with the notable exception of Michelle Yeoh. You've got your Asian baby dolls, your rich Asian hongers, your awkward nerds, and your over-the-top mainlander parents. I'd say that the notable exception here is the laugh-out-loud performance of Awkwafina, who, in my opinion, stole the show. All of these bit characters, they're funny, they're relatable in some ways, they're definitely necessary within the context of a romantic comedy, but ultimately, at the end of the day, they're just new stereotypes. In the future, I see a time when there is no longer a need for a Crazy Rich Asians or a Black Panther to be a culturally defining piece of work. But we're still not there yet. So what does this have to do with food? Well, on the surface, not a whole lot. Until you dig a little bit deeper and you realize that food is very much one of those culturally significant things. What we eat, how we prepare it, when we prepare it, and when we eat it, they're all very important. I think everyone has a touchstone in their lives to their moms or their grandmothers cooking. And in Crazy Rich Asians, they do a particularly good job focusing on the types of food, the preparation of the food that that is eaten in the movie. Take, for example, the close-ups on the hands of those preparing the food. I think a subtle nod to eat, drink, man, woman. And then there's the particularly intense dumpling scene. It also just so happens that today, Kim and I made dumplings, and we're going to eat them for dinner. Everyone, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of Crazy Rich Asians, and help me sound off, define what it means to be a Canadian-born Chinese or an American-born Chinese, or any other Asian for that matter. I would love to know. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Wong-Kwo. I make content all about food and foodie culture. I'm releasing a new video every single week on Fridays, and I would love to have you guys join the foodie fam. So please hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and give that notification bell a tickle, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, stay hungry. Bye.